Hi, I'm Brandon Aragon, and today I'll be exploring two concepts from two separate chapters of our textbook, Fair and Foul. So, a little bit about myself. I'm an athlete. I've played everything from basketball to football to baseball, and I still play baseball to this day. And throughout my whole athletic career, I've always been a big believer that the physical aspect of sports and the mental aspect of sports are equally as important. People like to put stress on the physical more than the mental, and I think that's a big mistake. Because personally, I've seen more people fail mentally than physically, whether it's a confidence thing or they can't handle the pressure, whatever it is. I've seen a lot more people with mental problems than physical problems. This class really helped me to explore the mind of a student athlete, trying to learn and maximize their potential both mentally and physically. Um, and as a player who eventually wants to be a coach, it's important to learn how the mind works for these kids, so that I can learn the best way that I can teach people these physical skills and these mental skills that they'll use throughout their sport and throughout their life. The first topic I'll be talking about today comes from chapter 4 of the textbook, which is Sport is Fair and Sport is Foul. Now, this chapter goes a little bit into the fairness of sports and how the rules affect this. So, basically, what the chapter talks about is how each sport is governed by their own set of rules. And these rules are there to protect the safety of the players, to protect the integrity of the game, and basically to make sure the competition runs as smoothly and as efficiently as possible, um, and keep in that competitive manner. Um, the reason I chose this topic is because I think that this is a topic that gets misunderstood a lot. When people think of fair and unfair, they like to think of good and bad as associating words with those two. When in reality, that's not really the case. Um, in my opinion, the biggest benefit that comes from sports and physical education is the life skills that it teaches us. And I think we all know that life isn't fair. And most of the time, neither are sports, because when you're playing, you're competing, there's always going to be somebody better than you. There's always going to be somebody with more opportunities than you, and that just isn't fair. But we all know that that's how life works. So when you play sports and you're in physical education, you can learn these things at a younger age. Now, as far as history and real world stories that go with this topic, there are a lot of those. One of the biggest being the pay gap between men and women in professional sports, which most people, including myself, find very unfair. Um, so, if you didn't know this, if when players are receiving prize money or individual salaries, male athletes in basketball, golf, soccer, baseball, and tennis make anywhere from 15% to nearly 100% more than female athletes. Um, Now, this is because of the crowds they bring in and the ticket sales and the jersey sales and all this kind of stuff contributes to this. Um, but the women work just as hard as the men and put just as good of a product out on the field or the court. So it definitely does not seem fair that that men make that much more money than women in professional sports. Another example that I thought of is participation trophies in youth sports. So in youth sports, it's a big controversial topic about whether kids should receive participation trophies or not. Now, some people think that if you don't receive a participation trophy, it will bring down kids' confidence because that just shows them that they didn't win, and they see a winner getting a trophy, and it makes them feel like a loser, basically. So people started, a lot of leagues in youth sports started giving out participation trophies to everybody, so that way everybody felt included and everybody could get their confidence up a little bit. Um, and the last and most important example to me is basically revolves around your opportunities and where you come from. So obviously, a kid who grows up with a family with means and a lot of opportunities, he'll be able to get the best coaching, the best training, the best facilities in his given sport, and he can go to the better showcases and show himself off to scouts and coaches, and he'll get a lot better opportunities in his sport than another kid who might not be better off, might not be as well off financially, and cannot afford the nice equipment or the nice facilities or the nice training, and has to do stuff on his own, and can't practice year round and has to work, so he can't practice as much. So this is definitely something that I find unfair in sports, but it's also something that is a fact of life, and you can't really get around it. So this is one example of a life skill that sports can teach kids from a very young age. Now, I've also come up with a few things that could help with some of these problems. As far as the pay gap between men and women goes, I mean, that's an issue that people have been trying to solve for a very long time, and just one idea is not going to solve it. But the main thing that we can do, just as a people, is just bring up the interest in women's sports. I know I don't watch very many WNBA basketball games, so just tuning in to watch some good basketball on the women's side every now and then, bring up the ratings a little bit, could definitely help this. And as far as the participation goes, each athlete needs to find their own level of competition that works best for them, whether that's a rec league or competitive league. It's best for an athlete to match their competition or to match their level with the level of their competition. When you do this, your confidence rises and has a lot less chance of being lowered. Now, as far as opportunities go and where you come from, you can't really help that, but we can help to provide more resources to people that have less opportunities, and such as camps, nicer fields, nicer facilities for cheaper prices that they could have access to, and just providing resources for them to be able to get better and participate in the sport that they love. The next topic that I wanted to talk about comes from Chapter 10, which is called Big Time College Sport, Commercialized Sport Within Academia. And this chapter dives into college sports basically being commercialized and turned into a business when these athletes are still technically amateurs. Now, the reason I chose to talk about this topic was because I think this is one of the biggest issues that we face in sports today, not just youth sports, but in sports total. And that's the amount of money that college programs and the NCAA makes off of these athletes without them seeing any of it. So some history behind this issue. The NCAA is the governing organization for the main organization for college sports in America. And off of their sports, every year, the NCAA makes around $18.9 billion. And this doesn't come from just one sport. This comes from all the sports, men and women. And there are a lot of different sports that they come from, the biggest being basketball, football, and baseball. So what comes with this is the NCAA, as well as the institutions, have millions of dollars worth of TV deals. They put millions of dollars into their stadiums and their facilities. They make millions of dollars off of their merchandise sales, whether that's hoodies, jerseys, T-shirts, hats, whatever. And there's even some companies that make video games that feature these athletes in them. So there are businessmen and people all around the country making millions and billions of dollars off of the backs and sweats of these athletes. And up until recently, it was illegal for them to take any money as a result of this. One real life example that came to mind for me involving college sports and this issue comes from Ed O'Bannon, who played basketball at UCLA. And Ed O'Bannon had been done playing college basketball for a while, and then one day he saw a friend playing a video game that featured himself in it. And it was actually him. It was Ed O'Bannon. It had his name, his number, his height. It even looked like him. And Ed O'Bannon had no idea that he was even in this video game. And come to find out, this video game had sold millions of copies across the U.S., and he's literally in the game and has never seen any money from it or anything, and was not even allowed to, according to the NCAA. So he actually sued the NCAA for this, and the results being they found that they allowed the NCAA to provide money to their players up to the amount of their tuition. So some solutions to this issue, actually the biggest solution came into play recently, and that is the NIL, which stands for name, image, and likeness. And basically, what that is the NCAA just passed some legislation that allows players now to make money off of their name, image, and likeness. So, no, they can't get paid in a salary from the school. However, they can now go get sponsorships, and they can get shoe deals, and they can be in commercials, they can be in video games and make money off of that. They can sell their own autographs, things like that. So basically, it's a step in the right direction because these players can now make money off of their own names instead of just the school being able to do that. Throughout this class, I learned a lot about psychology and sociology of sport and about the mindset of students and athletes when it comes to physical education and sports. I also learned a lot of the best ways to teach kids when it comes to physical education. And mainly, I learned the real life benefits that come from physical education and that comes from kids participating in sports. So I really enjoyed this class, and I appreciate everything I learned, and I hope to have you as a teacher again in the future.